Now, what if you play your first fret on your A string? What would the name of that note be? It'd be the next note higher than A. That's A sharp, B flat. And then you put your second finger down. That would be B. And then you put your third finger down. That would be the next note higher than B. What's that? What's the next note higher than B? No sharp and flat between B and C, is there? So that would be C. And finally on that string, you put your pinky down on that string, and what would the name of that note be? The next note higher than C is, of course, C sharp or D flat. Once again, here's the notes you just played with your 4 fingers. Remember, you've got a chart just like this in your support material, too. If this is coming at you a little fast, you can just, check that out as you're going by. Now, my pinky note on my A string was C sharp, D flat. What's the next note after that in the musical alphabet? It's D, right? That's why your next string is tuned to D. It picks up right there with D. And there has been 4 notes in between these 2 strings, so the strings so far, right? That's because you have 4 fingers. On your D string, your first fret with your first index finger on that would be D sharp or E flat. And then your second finger on that string would play E. Now take a look at this. You started on E down here. Our low open string was an E, right? And now we've encountered another E on the second fret on our D string over here. Would notice we're also about halfway across the neck at this point, and we've hit another E. Well, we've gone 1 octave, and if you count the number of notes we've played at this point, it's 13 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 notes we played, and we have gone 1 octave, and we're about halfway across the neck at this point. You'll also notice that your high string up here on the guitar is also tuned to an E. Your low string is an E, and your high string is an E up here. Are those the same pitch? Are those 2, your low E down here at the bottom and your high E up at the top, are those the same pitch? No, of course not. Listen to them. This high E is much higher in pitch than this low E is. A lot of people think they're only 1 octave apart. You're about to find out that actually they're 2 octaves apart. It's 1 octave gets us to about the middle of the neck here, and it's going to be another octave to get us up to the high E string. So we are on the 2nd fret on our D string, and that's an E note. Let's keep going. The 3rd fret on your D string would be the next note higher than E. That's F. And then your pinky note would be F sharp, G flat. Once again, there's the 4 notes you just played with your 4 fingers. Just when you run out of fingers, what's the very next note after F sharp, G flat? It's G, right? That's why your next string is tuned to G. Your open next string is G. It picks up right where you left off on your D string. Now, here's where things get a little bit interesting. We have noticed that all the strings of the guitar are tuned 4 notes apart because you have 4 fingers, right? Well, what you're about to find out now is very important. There are 2 strings on the guitar that are not tuned the same distance apart that all the other ones are. And it's these 2 strings right here. Your next 2 strings, your G string and your B string, are not tuned 4 notes apart. They're only tuned 3 notes apart. These strings are tuned 1 note closer together than any of the other strings on the guitar are. And everybody goes, why did they decide to do that? They had this nice logical 4 fingers, 4 notes apart type thing going on. Why did they decide to mess with that and mess us all up? Well, the answer is a very interesting thing that we're just going to touch on once for right now, and we'll be talking about this more later on. A guitar is what's known as a polyphonic instrument. Polyphonic means many-noted. Polyphonic instruments are the types of instruments that you can play multiple notes simultaneously on. You can play chords on. A guitar is a polyphonic instrument. A piano is a polyphonic instrument. You can play chords on these instruments. A saxophone or a trumpet, these are monophonic instruments. They will only play 1 note at a time. You can't play notes on a trumpet. I mean, you can't play chords on a trumpet, right? You knew that. You can only play 1 note at a time. One thing that you got to keep in the back of your mind about all polyphonic instruments is this, and this might never have occurred to you before. You cannot assume that every single combination of notes that you might ever want to play on a polyphonic instrument is something that's actually going to be physically possible for you to accomplish. There are profound physical limitations as to what combinations of notes you can play on any polyphonic instrument. And that surprises a lot of people. They go, gee, really? I thought they would have designed these instruments so that you can play any combination of notes you want. And I go, well, wouldn't that be nice? But the truth of the matter is, here it is, the year 2001, and then nobody's come up with a way to do that yet. These instruments that we play in these days are generally considered to be the best ones, but remember, they have profound physical limitations as to what combinations of notes you can play. People go, really? Yeah, and I'll show you. I'll give you a trivial example. It's easier to see this on the piano again. Piano is a polyphonic instrument, isn't it? I ought to be able to play 3 simultaneous notes on a piano, right? Well, I can if they're these 3 notes, or even these 3 notes, or even these 3 notes. But what if they want me to play this note, and this note all at the same time? This note, one in the middle of the keyboard, and then the one up at the top of the keyboard. How am I supposed to do that all at the same time? My fingers, I can't do that. My fingers won't reach like that. That's a trivial example. You're going to find so many times when you're trying to play a chord on the guitar and you wish you could just move that pinky over one more string and one more fret like that, and that would be such a cool chord, and you just can't do it. There are physical limitations as to what combinations of notes you can make your fingers play on any polyphonic instrument. How do you like that? So, back to our question here. Remember, our actual question is, why, when they tuned all the other strings 4 notes apart, why did they decide to tune these strings only 3 notes apart? Well, the answer is somebody figured out one day, a couple of hundred years ago, that if they made that one little compromise in the way the instrument was tuned, all of a sudden a whole lot of very useful finger patterns, particularly in the area of chords, a whole lot of finger patterns that had previously been impossible to do, suddenly became possible. And they just decided to go with that. You know, it would, I suppose, would have been nice if all the strings could have been 4 notes apart, but it just made it a more limited instrument. Somebody said, hey, let's do that, and you can play a lot more chords. And that's the way the guitar, the standard tuning of the guitar has been that way ever since. Now let's prove that too, because you're going to see, alphabetically speaking, that there are only 3 musical alphabet notes in between G and B. The first fret on your G string, of course, would be G sharp or A flat. And then your second finger would play A, and then your third finger would play A sharp, B flat. And notice how that's only 3 notes. That's only 3 notes before the next note you'd want to see is B, where your next string picks up. Now, when we get up to the distance between our B string and our E string, we are back to 4 notes. Again, in between each string. The first fret on your B string, remember there's no sharp and flat between B and C, so when you put your index finger on your B string, that's a C note. By the way, you also have a finger chart that came with your support material of where all the notes are on your guitar. I probably should have mentioned this before, but you might want to be looking at that.
Hi, I'm Scotty West, creator of the Absolutely Understand Guitar Video Home Study Program. Hey, thanks for all the positive feedback on our video guitar lessons. We're now uploading new lessons right from our DVD Home Study Program. Each lesson is 70 minutes long, but we've chopped them up into 10-minute chapters to fit on YouTube, so each lesson will have 7 chapters. It's critical that you watch these chapters in order. Make sure you start with Lesson 1, Chapter 1, then move to Lesson 1, Chapter 2, etc. When you've finished all the chapters for Lesson 1, then move on to Lesson 2. Hey, some of this stuff you might already know, and some of it's a little dry. You're going to wonder, do I really need to know this stuff? The answer is yes. Each one of these chapters contains little gems of information that nobody's told you yet, and these are the missing pieces that are preventing you from seeing the big picture. Don't cheat yourself out of these valuable realizations. Stick with the program. Also, consider our complete DVD home study program. Our high-resolution DVD video is much better than these fuzzy little YouTube clips, and you'll also get all our cool printed material too. So good luck with your music and enjoy the lessons.